The kitchen faucet had been dripping for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of that maddening plink, plink, plink echoing through our cramped suburban house at all hours. 3 weeks of my wife Sandra promising she'd call someone to fix it, even though we both knew I'd end up doing it myself. I was elbow deep under the sink, wrench in hand, when Sandra walked into the kitchen wearing that black dress, the one she saved for important occasions. Her heels clicked against our worn linoleum like a countdown timer. "I'm staying at David's tonight," she announced, not looking at me. David, her ex-boyfriend from college. The same David who'd somehow landed a job at her marketing firm 6 months ago. Pure coincidence, she'd assured me. I didn't look up from the pipes. "Sandra, please don't sleep there." She let out that familiar sigh, the one that made me feel like a paranoid child. "God, Mike, you're so insecure. It's just work. We have that big presentation tomorrow, and his place is closer to the office." "His place has a couch, right?" "You're being ridiculous." Her heels click toward the door. Some people trust their spouses. Others hesitate over everything. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The front door slammed before I could respond. I went back to the faucet, tightening bolts with more force than necessary. The dripping stopped. One problem solved. My phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m. A selfie. Sandra in bed, hair tousled, wearing nothing but a sheet. Behind her, I could see David's smug face grinning at the camera. The text below read, "Some trust, some hesitate. Guess which you are." My hands shook as I stared at the screen. 22 years of marriage. 22 years of working double shifts at the auto shop to support her career ambitions. 22 years of believing her lies. I hit the FaceTime button. She answered on the third ring, laughing. "Oh my God, Mike, you actually called? That's so." "Hi there, Mike." David's voice came from behind her. He leaned into frame, shirtless, waving mockingly. "Thanks for letting me borrow your wife." Sandra giggled, actually giggled like a teenager. "David, stop." I kept my voice steady. "You're right, Sandra. I do need to work on my insecurity." Her laughter faltered. "What?" "I'll work on trusting you more, starting tomorrow." I hung up and sat in our empty kitchen for a long time, staring at that selfie. Then I opened my laptop and got to work. Sandra stumbled through the front door at 6:30 a.m., reeking of wine and regret. Her black dress was wrinkled, her makeup smeared. She looked like exactly what she was. "We need to talk," she said, dropping her purse by the door. I was sitting at our kitchen table, sipping coffee, surrounded by neat stacks of papers, bank statements, credit card receipts, hotel bills, phone records, 6 months of detective work laid out like a prosecutor's case. "Good morning to you too, honey." I gestured to the empty chair across from me. "Coffee?" She glanced at the papers, and I watched her face cycle through confusion, recognition, and panic. "What is this?" "Evidence. Turns out you were right. I was being paranoid, so I decided to find proof that I was wrong." I picked up a receipt from the Marriott downtown. "February 14th, Valentine's Day. You told me you were working late. Funny thing about hotel receipts, they're very detailed. Room service for 2, champagne, strawberries." Her phone started buzzing. She ignored it. "March 8th, the Hilton. You said you had that conference in Albany?" I held up another receipt. "Except this Hilton is 20 minutes from our house." The phone kept buzzing. Sandra finally looked at it, and her face went white. 17 missed calls from David, I observed. "He seems upset about something." She answered on the next ring. "David, I can't talk right." His voice was loud enough for me to hear. "My wife knows. She's filing for divorce." "She has photos, Sandra. What the hell did you send to your husband?" Sandra looked at me with growing horror. "Mike, what did you do?" I pulled out my own phone and showed her the screenshot I'd taken of her selfie. "I sent this to David's wife, along with the timestamp, and your little message about trust and hesitation." I paused. "She posted it on Facebook an hour ago. Tagged both of you. It has 43 likes already." Sandra's phone exploded with notifications. Calls, texts, social media alerts. Her carefully constructed world was imploding in real time. "You bastard," she whispered. "I'm the bastard?" I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "You sent me a photo of yourself in bed with another man. You mocked me for being paranoid. You destroyed yourself trying to prove I was insecure." Her phone rang again. This time the caller ID read, "Mr. Henderson, boss." "You should answer that," I suggested. "I imagine HR has some questions." Sandra's suspension was immediate. Pending investigation into workplace conduct, according to the official email that arrived 2 hours later. David got the same treatment. Their little office romance had become a corporate liability overnight. I spent the morning at Murphy's auto shop, where I'd worked for 15 years. The familiar smell of motor oil and the sound of pneumatic tools felt like sanctuary. My boss, Eddie Murphy, yes, that was his real name, found me under the hood of a '98 Camaro around noon. "Heard through the grapevine your wife's having some troubles," he said, lighting a cigarette despite the no-smoking signs everywhere. "News travels fast in this town." "My wife's on Facebook. Saw the whole thing." He took a long drag. "That's rough, Mike." I tightened a bolt that didn't need tightening. "I'm handling it." "You need time off?" "I need to stay busy." Eddie nodded and walked away. Good bosses know when to leave a man alone with his thoughts and his tools. My sister Jenny showed up at closing time, practically vibrating with excitement. Jenny was 2 years younger than me, but acted like she was still in high school, always hungry for drama and gossip. "Holy shit, Mike. I mean, holy crap. Sorry, but everyone's talking about it." She climbed onto my workbench, ignoring the grease stains on her white jeans. "Mrs. Patterson from next door called me this morning. She said she always knew Sandra was trash." "Jenny? And Lisa from the grocery store? She said David's wife cleaned out their joint account and changed the locks. Apparently he's staying at some motel on Route 9. I kept working, but I was listening. "Oh, and get this. Sandra's been calling everyone, trying to do damage control, but nobody's buying it. Cindy Walsh told her to lose her number." Cindy Walsh had been Sandra's best friend since college. If she was cutting ties, the social circle was collapsing completely. "Where is Sandra now?" I asked. "Last I heard, she was at her mom's place, crying about how you destroyed her life." Jenny made air quotes, rolling her eyes. "Can you believe that? She cheats, gets caught, and somehow you're the villain." I finished with the Camaro and started cleaning my tools. "Maybe I am the villain." Jenny looked at me sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just thinking out loud." But I wasn't just thinking. I was planning. That evening, I drove to Sullivan's Tavern, a dive bar on the wrong side of town where the beer was cheap and the conversations were cheaper. The owner, Tom Sullivan, had been my best friend since high school. He was also an ex-cop who'd left the force after a scandal involving his captain's wife, a story for another time. Tom was behind the bar, polishing glasses that would never be truly clean. The place smelled like stale cigarettes and broken dreams, which made it perfect for my current mood. "Well, well," Tom said as I slid onto a bar stool. "If it isn't the town's most famous cuckold." "Thanks for the warm welcome." He poured me a whiskey without being asked. "Heard your wife's been making headlines. Social media's a hell of a thing, isn't it?" "She always said I didn't understand technology." "Looks like you understand it just fine." Tom leaned against the bar. "What's your next move?" "What makes you think I have a next move?" "Because I know you. You're not the forgive and forget type. Never have been." He was right. In high school, when Billy Morrison had keyed my car, I'd waited 3 months before filling his locker with shrimp. The smell lasted until graduation. Patience was my specialty. "I need information," I said quietly. Tom's eyes lit up with interest. "What kind of information?" "The kind that ruins lives." He disappeared into the back office and returned with a manila folder. "David Brennan, age 41, lives at 847 Maple Street. Well, used to. Drives a red BMW convertible, license plate DBR 2019. Works at Pinnacle Marketing, same as your wife. Married to Rebecca Brennan, 2 kids. How did you? I still have friends on the force. And Rebecca Brennan filed a police report yesterday about harassment. Seems David's been getting some unwanted attention since that photo went viral. I flipped through the folder. Financial records, employment history, even a copy of David's lease agreement. Tom had been thorough. There's more, Tom said. David's got a gambling problem. Owes money to some unsavory people. Been using company funds to cover his debts. How do you know that? Because Rebecca Brennan isn't just filing for divorce. She's talking to the FBI about financial crimes. I closed the folder. This is more than I asked for. No, it's exactly what you need. You want revenge? Don't just humiliate him. Destroy him completely. The whiskey burned as I drained the glass. I'm not looking to destroy anyone. Tom laughed. Sure you're not. That's why you're sitting in my bar at 9 p.m. with a folder full of someone else's dirty laundry. He had a point. I found David at his temporary residence, a seedy motel called the Sleepy Inn that rented rooms by the week. His red BMW was parked outside room 127, looking out of place among the rusted pickup trucks and dented sedans. I knocked on the door at 10 p.m. He answered wearing a bathrobe and holding a beer, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Mike?" His voice was flat, resigned. "I wondered when you'd show up. Can we talk?" He stepped aside and let me in. The room was small and depressing, with wood-paneled walls and a bed that had seen better decades. Empty beer bottles covered the nightstand. "Nice place," I said. "It's temporary." He sat on the edge of the bed. "Look, Mike, I know you're angry." "Angry?" I laughed. "David, I'm not angry. I'm curious." "About what?" "About why you thought you could humiliate me and get away with it." He had the decency to look ashamed. "The selfie was Sandra's idea. She said you were being paranoid and possessive. She wanted to prove a point." "What point was that?" "That you didn't trust her." "Turns out I was right not to trust her." David finished his beer and reached for another. "You destroyed my marriage. My kids won't talk to me. I lost my job. My wife cleaned out our accounts. What more do you want?" I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot. "I want you to understand something, David. You didn't just sleep with my wife. You mocked me. You waved at me through that phone like I was some kind of joke. I was drunk. You were arrogant. There's a difference." I turned back to face him. "Sandra's been calling me all day, begging for forgiveness. She says it was a mistake, that she loves me, that we can work through this." David's face showed a flicker of hope. "Maybe you can. Maybe. But here's the thing, David. I don't want to work through this. I want to finish it." The hope died in his eyes. "What does that mean?" I pulled out my phone and showed him a recording app. "It means I've been recording this conversation, and in about 30 seconds, you're going to tell me exactly how long you've been stealing from Pinnacle Marketing." His face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. Tom Sullivan used to be a cop. Did you know that? He still has friends in law enforcement. Friends who are very interested in your gambling debts and where you've been getting the money to pay them." David set down his beer with shaking hands. "Mike, please. The FBI is already investigating. Your ex-wife gave them everything, but I thought you might want to get ahead of the story, control the narrative, as you marketing people like to say." "You bastard." That's the second time someone's called me that today. I'm starting to take it as a compliment. David looked at me for a long moment, then started talking. He told me about the gambling, the stolen funds, the forged documents. He told me about other affairs, other women he'd manipulated and discarded. He told me things that would destroy what was left of his reputation and probably land him in federal prison. I recorded every word. The next morning, I met Sandra at a coffee shop downtown. She'd chosen a public place, probably hoping I wouldn't make a scene. She looked terrible, red eyes, pale skin, hair that hadn't seen a brush in days. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down across from her. "You said it was important." She reached across the table and tried to take my hand. I pulled it away. "Mike, I know I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. What you did was make a choice. Multiple choices, over multiple months. I know. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling, we can..." I pulled out my phone and played the recording from David's motel room. Her face crumbled as she heard his voice confessing to embezzlement, fraud, and a string of affairs that included several of her coworkers. "He used you, Sandra, just like he used all the others." She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "I didn't know about the other women. I swear I didn't know. But you knew about the money." Her silence was answer enough. "The FBI raided Pinnacle Marketing this morning," I continued. "David's been arrested. They're going through his files, his computer, his phone records. Guess whose name keeps coming up as an accomplice?" "I never took any money." "No, but you knew he was taking it. You helped him cover it up. You provided alibis, false documents, fake receipts. That makes you an accessory." Sandra's coffee cup rattled against the saucer as her hands shook. "What do you want from me, Mike?" "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You thought you could humiliate me and walk away clean. You thought I was weak, that I'd just accept whatever scraps of respect you decided to throw me." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "You were wrong." She wiped her eyes with a napkin. "So? What happens now?" "Now you face the music. The FBI will probably offer you a deal if you cooperate fully. Your friends and family already know what kind of person you are. Your career is over." "And us?" I stood up and dropped a $5 bill on the table. "There is no us. There hasn't been for a long time. I was just too trusting to see it." As I walked away, I heard her calling my name, begging me to come back. I kept walking. Word travels fast in a small town, especially when it involves federal investigations and public humiliation. By the end of the week, everyone knew the story: Sandra's affair, David's crimes, and my methodical destruction of both their lives. Most people were sympathetic. Eddie gave me a raise and extra vacation time. Jenny brought me casseroles and gossip. Tom offered free drinks and a listening ear. But not everyone approved of my methods. I found that out Saturday night when I walked into Murphy's Pub, a different bar than Sullivan's, more upscale, where the college-educated crowd gathered to feel superior to the working-class folks who drank at Tom's place. 3 men were waiting for me at a corner table: James Patterson, my neighbor, Robert Chen, a lawyer who'd handled our house purchase, and Michael Torres, Sandra's cousin. They'd been my friends once, or at least I'd thought they were. "Mike," James said as I approached, "we need to talk." I sat down uninvited. "About what?" "About what you did to Sandra and David," Robert said. "It was excessive." "Excessive?" I laughed. "They committed adultery and embezzlement, but my response was excessive?" "You ruined their lives," Michael said. His face was red with anger, Sandra's family trait. "Sandra's my cousin. I've known her since we were kids. She made a mistake, but she doesn't deserve this." "What does she deserve?" "Forgiveness. A chance to make things right." I looked around the table at these 3 men. Educated, successful, morally superior. "Let me ask you something. If your wives sent selfies of themselves in bed with other men, what would you do?" "I'd try to work things out," James said. "Marriage is about forgiveness." "I'd get counseling," Robert added. "Try to understand why it happened." "I'd give her a second chance," Michael finished, "because that's what love means." I nodded slowly. "That's very noble of you, very mature and enlightened." They looked pleased with themselves. "There's just one problem," I continued. "You're all full of shit." The table went silent. "James, you divorced your first wife because she gained 20 pounds after having your daughter. Robert, you've been cheating on your wife with your secretary for 3 years. And Michael, you embezzled from your own company and blamed it on a bookkeeper who got fired and couldn't find another job." Their faces went through various stages of shock and denial. "So don't lecture me about forgiveness and second chances. You're hypocrites, all of you. The only difference between you and me is that I'm honest about what I am." Robert leaned forward. "You can't prove any of that." I pulled out my phone. "Tom Sullivan isn't the only one with friends in interesting places. Amazing what people will tell you when they think you're on their side." I stood up to leave, then turned back. "Oh, and Michael? The FBI knows about the embezzlement. Apparently David wasn't the only one with gambling debts and flexible ethics. You might want to call a lawyer." I walked out of Murphy's Pub and never went back. 3 months later, the dust had settled. David was in federal prison, serving 5 years for embezzlement and fraud. Sandra had avoided jail time by cooperating with the investigation, but her career was over, and she'd moved back in with her mother in another state. Michael Torres was under investigation for his own financial crimes. Robert Chen's wife had found out about the affair and taken him for half his assets. James Patterson's second marriage was on the rocks after his neighbors started talking about his first divorce. I was doing fine. Better than fine, actually. The house was quiet without Sandra's constant complaints and demands. My bank account was healthier without her shopping habits. I'd even started dating again, a nice woman named Lisa who worked at the library and didn't care about social media or office politics. But I wasn't done yet. The Riverside Community Center held its annual charity auction every October, a big social event where all the town's important people gathered to see and be seen. This year, I decided to attend. I wore my best suit, the one I'd bought for Sandra's company Christmas parties but never felt comfortable in. Tonight, I felt like it fit perfectly. The auction was in full swing when I arrived. Mayor Williams was on stage, auctioning off a weekend at someone's lake house. The crowd was the usual mix of local business owners, politicians, and social climbers. I spotted several familiar faces: James Patterson bidding on golf lessons, Robert Chen trying to look dignified despite his pending divorce, various co-workers from Sandra's old company pretending they'd never gossiped about the scandal. When the auction ended and the mayor opened the floor for announcements, I raised my hand. "I'd like to say something." Mayor Williams looked surprised but handed me the microphone. The crowd quieted, sensing drama. "Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Mike Johnson. You might remember me from earlier this year when my wife's affair became front-page news." Uncomfortable murmurs rippled through the crowd. I've learned a lot these past few months about trust, friendship, and community. I've learned that some people will stand by you when times get tough, and others will judge you for how you handle betrayal. I paused, looking around the room. I've also learned that this town is full of secrets. Affairs, embezzlement, tax evasion, insurance fraud. Amazing how much dirt you can dig up when you put your mind to it. The murmurs turned to worried whispers. Now, I could stand here and expose every dirty secret I've uncovered. I could name names and show evidence. I could destroy reputations and ruin lives, just like some of you thought I did to my wife and her lover. I smiled at the sea of nervous faces. But I'm not going to do that, because unlike some people in this room, I believe in proportional response. My wife and David humiliated me publicly, so I responded in kind. But the rest of you? You're not worth the effort. I handed the microphone back to Mayor Williams. However, I said, my voice carrying without amplification, if anyone wants to continue lecturing me about forgiveness and second chances, I'd be happy to discuss your own moral failings in detail. The choice is yours. I walked out of the community center to absolute silence. Epilogue. Some trust, some hesitate. 6 months after the community center incident, I was a different man living a different life. The house was mine free and clear. Sandra had signed over her half in exchange for me not pursuing alimony or damages. The auto shop was busier than ever. Apparently, having a reputation as someone who doesn't take shit lying down was good for business. Lisa and I had moved in together, taking things slow but steady. She understood what I'd been through and didn't judge me for how I'd handled it. On quiet evenings, she'd read while I worked on crossword puzzles, both of us comfortable in the silence. I was finishing a particularly difficult puzzle when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mike, this is Sandra. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know I'm getting help. Therapy, medication, the whole thing. I realize now how badly I hurt you, and I'm truly sorry. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I understand what I did was unforgivable. I hope you're happy. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Lisa looked up from her book. Everything okay? Just spam, I said, returning to my puzzle. The clue was trust issues, perhaps. 7 letters. I filled in the answer. Betrayed. Some people trust blindly, accepting whatever they're told without question. Others hesitate, asking uncomfortable questions and demanding proof. For 22 years, I'd been a truster, believing in the best of people even when evidence suggested otherwise. I wasn't that man anymore. The next clue was easier. What goes around comes around. 5 letters. Karma. I smiled and kept working. Outside, it started to rain, but inside our little house, everything was warm and dry and honest. Lisa turned a page in her book. The clock on the wall ticked steadily forward. Some trust, some hesitate, and some learn the difference between the two the hard way. I'd learned it the hardest way possible, but I'd learned it completely. And that, I realized, was worth more than any marriage built on lies.